and welcome to the 920 podcast. I'm your host, Logan Quinton. Of course, the battery would not be complete without Charley Collier. We're here to kick things off on the 2023 season, and we have a very special guest with us today. These Vols are going to have a lot of new faces this year, and this is one of them, Griffin Merritt. Welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thanks for having
me. Griffin, you had a little bit of a rough night last night. You're an Ohio kid, Cincinnati, born and raised. You're a huge Bengals fan. I appreciate you hopping on this lovely morning and kind of go through it and muscle through this thing.
Yeah, it was definitely a rough game to watch last night, but it is what it is, and I know a lot of people are, kind of pointing at some officiating, but there was definitely some plays that, could have been made that weren't made. And it was just overall, it was a good season, though. And now it's time. I hope they draft well and get ready for next year.
Like I mentioned, you're a Cincy kid. You're going to be a new face to this club, but you're a veteran presence. What's your role going to be with these Vols in particular?
My role is going to be someone that can, be consistent and, kind of be counted on to know what I'm going to do and bring every day, at least, in the locker room. And, baseball is an up and down sport, but, I've kind of had enough experience at this point where, I feel like my performance can, be pretty consistent. And there'll be ups and there'll be downs, just as anybody would, but I want to be a presence that we can look at and count on, just to be consistent, because we have a lot of very good players and they're young, and some of them don't have much experience. So maybe their ups and downs are a little more drastic throughout the season. So I want to be somebody in the in our lineup that can just be consistent, and Coach Vitello and everybody else can look at and be like, all right, we know what we're going to get here. And as far as the locker room presence, it's going to be, part of my role to manage the maturity level of our team, and provide a, kind of like a veteran mindset a little more in our locker room, just because we have a lot of new faces and a lot of young players, and they're super, super talented, especially on the position side. The pitching side, you have a lot of experience and you have a lot of talent, and they kind of do their own thing, which is good. But on the position side, part of my role is definitely to, kind of, give advice and be that presence in the locker room that, people can kind of come to if they need something that's more of a experience question versus, a baseball or a talent question kind of thing.
Griffin, you mentioned the maturity of this team and how there are a lot of new faces on this team. I want to take it back a little bit. Last year, obviously, you were at Cincinnati, spent a good portion of your career at Cincinnati before transferring to Tennessee this offseason. What was it like, I guess, to be in the world of college baseball, but outside of the world of Tennessee baseball, and kind of view that Tennessee team just as a college baseball player that's out of the SEC that doesn't play at Tennessee, to just see that team and kind of the publicity that they got, and I guess some of the extracurriculars that they got involved with too, and just as the number one team in the country, and kind of had it talking about.
I mean, last year, even since I wasn't in the SEC or following them closely, I was focused on what I was doing at that moment. But everybody in college baseball last year, knew what was going on in Knoxville, and knew that there was a special team that was doing a lot of special things. So it was something that through last year wasn't the first thing I was checking every day, but it was definitely like in the back of my head, like, wow, I mean, this team is they just won 50 games, or they're like you see the highlights and you hear the stories, and some of the things that happened in last year's team. And it's just special, and it was cool to see a fan base, regardless of what school it is, engage in their team like that in college baseball. That's more of the norm, and college football, some college basketball, but to see that in baseball is cool. And it's refreshing because I think college baseball deserves more of that. I think it's a very underrated sport, but I think that lately the TV deals and picking up games is kind of putting it more in the public eye, and people are, they're starting to fall in love with it, which is awesome, because I really do feel that college baseball offers a very unique style of baseball compared to professional baseball, just for different reasons. And there's nothing, professional baseball is just a different game. It's a money game, and there's 162 games, and it's a little tough to play with that much emotion when you're trying to manage an entire season. But the college game is definitely growing, and Tennessee last year was a huge part of that. So I think everybody around the college baseball scene was pretty thankful for that.
Does it feel, I don't know, is there any kind of feeling in the locker room at this point? I know Coach Vitello has talked about a completely new identity. Obviously, each team had its own identity, but is there any kind of pressure you feel like to try to follow up a season like that?
I think sometimes it's tough if you are going to try to compare seasons, just because I think what happened last year at Tennessee, it had never really happened before. So it's hard to predict if it can happen again, let alone happen again this year. So I think this team is kind of taking on just a different identity. I think there needs to be a level of, a healthy level of separation between last year's team with this team. We need to look back and learn from the lessons and what went well and what didn't to improve. But we also can't, try to compare and dwell on some of the things that happened last year, especially as we get into the season, right? I mean, everybody wants to start, 10-0, and, I have a very strong feeling that we can do that. But, if it doesn't happen, we can't be like, well, last year this team was different, and now we're not going to be as good. Like we can't compare like that. Our goal is to be playing the best baseball we possibly can, come league play and come postseason. That's what you want in a season. You want to keep getting better throughout the year and kind of take on your identity, and it'll shake itself out. And I think we've done a very good job of, referencing last year's team and learning from the lessons and taking what we can from it, but also building. This is 2023's team. Every team's different.
And what's key to that, Griffin, is the young guys and the new names that we mentioned gelling together. Who are some of those names that have impressed you so far?
Yeah, man. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. Being new here, they're all new to me. But I guess first-year guys in this program, the pitching. I've said it multiple times, and a couple of different podcasts and things, is the pitching staff on this team, the depth on this pitching staff is not normal, to say the least. It is extremely talented with extreme competition and a bunch of guys that work super hard. And some of those new guys, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I'm just thinking like yesterday, we had a JUCO kid came in and threw, started the game in the rain. We had a freshman and a JUCO kid throw. Jake Bimby is a left-handed pitcher, a JUCO kid, and a right-handed freshman, JJ Garcia. And like these guys, they're not our Dolanders or our Burns or being, somebody super high up there. But I mean, these guys came in, have plus pitches, throw strikes, pound the zone. It's like, man, like if these are our middle arms right now, like, wow. Like, I mean, and now that I'm thinking, somebody that's really impressed me on the pitching side, a first-year guy, but he's a veteran guy. He's we're actually in the same class, is a kid named Andrew Lindsay, transferred in from Charlotte after a gap year. He's filthy, man. Filthy. He could be a starter. He could be a long relief. He could be a closer. Just super dynamic. Mid 90s, upper 90s, cutter, sinker, slider. Just it's nuts to just have that guy sitting in your pen. And then some new faces for probably the fans this year. but not into the program are Zach Joyce and Seth Halverson, who've, been battling some injuries and rehabbing. And both of them got back on the mound the last couple of weeks and have looked great. I mean, great. Both of them have, premium top line SEC stuff, and they're healthy and they feel good. And I mean, like I said, there's just so many pieces in that pitching side. And then on the offensive side, I think our transfers have transitioned well. When I say our positional transfers, Maui, myself, Zane Denton, and one of the catchers, Cal Stark, who is a JUCO kid as well, have transitioned well and settled in. I think all those names are going to be big players for us this year. And I know I'm super excited. There's a lot of new faces, but there's really not I don't think there's going to be a drop off, honestly.
Yeah, you mentioned new faces. You mentioned transfers. Obviously, you being one of those transfers. Again, Logan mentioned it, Cincinnati guy. You were born in Cincinnati. You got to play for Cincinnati. I imagine it was probably pretty hard to leave, a school where you grew up like that. What was kind of the process for you in making the decision to transfer and then ultimately, ending up at Tennessee as well?
Yeah, so I considered, through my season last year, I'm kind of a planner. And I was looking ahead a little bit. What do I want to do? I was going to have some options, and I just decided to kind of let it play out. I had talks of, in the draft of, I could probably start a professional career if I wanted to, at some certain aspect, or I was actually and still am accepted at Ohio State's dental school. So I was thinking about if, she's a time for me to transition. I appreciate that. Or, do I want to, graduate transfer, or do I want to go back to Cincinnati? So it was a really not stressful summer. I'm kidding. But, I was trying to decide, what is going to be best. And after the season, I waited till the draft, and the draft, it went well, and I had some opportunities, and I mean, more than a few within the draft, but it wasn't something that I was just going to pursue unless it was the right situation, if you understand what I'm saying. So I chose to pass, and I didn't want to sign a free agent deal post draft. So I was kind of at the terms of, am I ready to be done with baseball, or do I want to keep playing? And that was a no-brainer for me. I wanted to play. So then it was, do I want to go back to Cincinnati, or do I want to transfer? And I love Cincinnati. I love that coaching staff. I loved everything about playing there. I think when most people hear kids transfer, it's because of, they were unhappy, or there was, they disliked something. That wasn't the case for me. It was super hard. And they had on top of that, my brother was an incoming freshman who's there right now playing. So I had to even deal with that. But I just needed a new experience, and I needed to do what was best for me in my career. And if, what I did at Cincinnati last year, really the last 2 years, didn't put me or set me up for what I wanted to do, then I needed to transfer to a different stage and a different setting that would give me, maybe a better opportunity to pursue, my dreams and my career. So that's why I decided to transfer. And when I was in the portal, I was fortunate enough that I had a lot of interest and a lot of, options that I could have played at. But, a big thing for me is I wanted to stay close, and I wanted to go, like I said, to a school that gives me that best chance. And I mean, when I boiled down to it, it was kind of hard to look at Tennessee compared to anybody else and be like, it's 3.5 hours, 4 hours from Cincinnati. It really, the limelight of, college baseball probably has more eyes on them than any team in the country. That's exactly what I wanted. So I came and I visited, and it went great. And I fell in love with the coaching staff and the place, honestly, and the players, and it was a no-brainer. I actually canceled a ton of visits after. I was going to do a little world tour because it was already August when I was visiting. So I canceled visits to Arkansas, Oklahoma State, Texas, Alabama, all these places right after I came here. So this is where I want to be.
Yeah, we might be a little bit biased, but Knoxville, I think, can have that effect on people. And I'm sure that coaching staff can too. I mean,
Yeah, they're very good. They're very good recruiters, and they're very honest and open. And I am fortunate enough to go through this a second time as a graduate transfer, knowing kind of a lot of things that maybe a naive high schooler doesn't know in the recruiting process. And I mean, it's recruiting. You want players, and sometimes you got to fake it. But there was no faking in the recruiting process here. It was genuine, and I mean, I could see that immediately. And that's what I wanted. I wanted somewhere that I fit in, somewhere that was competitive and gave me a chance to compete for a position, and somewhere where the people fit in with the kind of person I am. And I mean, looking back, I can't be more thankful. I feel like I just hit the jackpot, because I'm sure there's a lot of wrong choices out there that I could have made, but this was the right choice.
Griffin, now we're going to get into a segment we call the weekend rotation. It's brought to you by our friends at Crumble Cookies. Normally during the season, we would match up the pitching opponents and dig into that. We don't have an opponent to dive into, but we have the Tennessee rotation. You mentioned some of the names. When you think about the projected weekend rotation, Dolander, Burns, Beam, possibly. My analysis or my advice for the opponent would be good luck with that, right? So I was going to see if you could help us out, dig into it a little bit. I mean, what is so special about this staff? I mean, you mentioned the depth, and there's JUCO guys transferring. There's guys like you mentioned, Lindsey coming over and being a force within that depth. I mean, Xander Sechrist, Camden Sewell, Seth Halverson, that's a weekend rotation right there. And those guys might not log a start on the weekend this year. That's just crazy to think about. Where does it start? Where does it end with this pitching staff, and why they're set up to be so dominant?
I think if you're asking where it starts, I think that's an obvious answer, at least to me, is it starts with, Chase Dolander and Chase Burns. Those are two guys that honestly probably shouldn't be in college. I think the world of both of them. I think, Chase Dolander is probably pitching in the big leagues in a year, honestly, maybe a year and a half at the most. And then I think Chase Burns is a fast track major league superstar as well. It starts with them, and I commend them because people look up to them in that pitching staff, as they should, right? But sometimes when you're on top, when I say on top, if they're not even on this team, they're really on top of the country. I mean, I think those are probably the two best arms in the country, but they work, man. They work and they lead, and they've elevated the floor of that pitching staff up just by how they go about their business. People want to be like them. People want to follow them, and it's making everybody on that pitching staff better. And if you're making kids on that staff better, then they're really good. And the weekend rotation, there is no set weekend rotation yet, so it'll all be speculation. That the coaches will figure that out. Not really. I mean, my guess is it's not much different than last year, but that's not my job. I just think those guys every day that Chase Dolander, Chase Burns, Drew Beam, or whoever else may be in one of those roles, runs out there and puts their toe on that rubber. As a position player, you don't care who you play, you got a shot. And that's one of the most comforting things to know as a position player is, that guy on the mound is going to compete, and he's extremely good, and we can beat anybody. And that's a nice feeling to have. And especially in, this time of the year where we're trying to, positional players and hitters are trying to, get back in the flow of gameplay, you're getting live at bats. I mean, when your at bats are off Burns and Dolander and some of these guys, they might not end, the way you exactly wanted it to end as a certain at bat, but you're getting better just seeing those arms right now compared to some teams maybe that aren't as fortunate to have those arms, don't get to train against them. And when you see them in the season, you're surprised. Whereas now I feel like it's the opposite. You're kind of, as hitters, you're grinding out at bats now, and you're learning now. And when you get to the season, it's almost like practice hard, game easy sort of thing. definitely has an aspect of hitting.
Yeah, Griffin, you you mentioned the preparation, and earlier, or I guess it was last week now. Tony Vitello spoke to the media, and he was talking about the winter break and the guys that go home and then you come back and you get into the spring and you get into this semester, and that's when you really start ramping things up. But he was talking about with older guys, you never really know exactly what you're going to get. If there's complacency, whatever else. But he said with you specifically and Andrew Lindsay, a guy that you mentioned earlier, he said that you guys maybe showed the most signs of progress. That when you left and came back, that you two had the most notable difference in how your bodies looked, how you moved around, and how well prepared that you guys seemed. Obviously, probably a great compliment. Don't know if you heard that or not, but what was winter break like for you? I guess for you to make such commendable strides.
Yeah, I think winter break is an interesting time in college baseball. I think college baseball is an interesting sport in that, you come in the fall, you put all this work in, you're playing, and right when you feel like you're about to, I'm settled in, I'm ready to go, you get shipped off to go home for a month. And it's like, oh, so right when you get in the flow, you're out, and then you come back and you got a month to scramble and then you play. So it's a weird sport. It's not like football or something where you're playing all summer, you're ready to go, you're there, and you lead into your season. It's like you build up, then you have a month gap. And there's two ways to treat that month gap, and it's you can use it to your advantage, or it can be, kind of your downfall. And throughout my career, I've always used that month to, work on my, my physicality and my trying to recover and do things the right way there. And then definitely, baseball skills involved in that. But that's a time for me to get my body right for a 65 game fight that we're going to have this season. So I really take that month seriously in my preparation. And then you get back to school, and this next month you start stringing gameplay together and getting your at bats together and getting ready to go for the season. But you got to set that foundation with your body, or I've been through it enough now where if you don't take care of yourself, halfway through the year, you start breaking down or you don't feel good. And, the last thing you want to do in SEC play is walk up to the plate and be like, man, I feel weak today, or, this and this hurts, and all this creeps in. And, for me, I'll never let that happen to me. I'll walk up there every day feeling, I'm not going to feel 100% every day. And there's going to be days, honestly, that something is not going to feel great, but it will never be something out of my control where I feel like I let my shape get away from me, or my conditioning and things like that.
I was going to ask you about that, the quick ramping up process that you mentioned, that you guys only have a month or so. And that's what makes this thing so unique in terms of build up to a season. Cause like in MLB, you have spring training. This year, spring training will be even more extended because of the WBC. You guys just have a month. So what is key for a clubhouse in that short amount of time to get ready for the season?
There's always housekeeping things that need to get done. Little things like, bunt coverages and picks and some of the things as players that get a little, repetitive. Not everybody, it's like the little things that nobody really wants to do, but they need to be done because you're about to enter. I got my calendar here for my big store on the 17th. You're about to enter the 17th where that stuff matters, right? Like in an inner squad in the fall, somebody screws up a bunt coverage. Yeah, Coach A might rip you for a second, but it was an inexpensive lesson. The expensive lessons start in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So you got to cover that stuff now. But the biggest thing that you can do at this point is to play. And that's why the schools in the South usually start better than the schools in the North. Now that I've been from both, is in the North, you can't play. Or you have to play inside, or you have to do live at bats in a cage because it's cold. There's snow on the ground. You can't tell your pitchers to go out there and, go throw 100% and it's 5 degrees. Somebody's going to get hurt. So you can't do that. Versus here, you can get outside. Like today, we're going to go play 12 innings. Like, depending on where you're at in the lineup, you might get, 6 at-bats, 7 at-bats, maybe. Like that's massive. So being able to play as much as you can at this point in the year in scrimmage is massive. And to do that with such a talented pitching staff that has, what seems like unlimited pitchers where you can just play and play and play. is a huge advantage for your team, mainly for your hitters, because your hitters get these at-bats. I mean, I'm looking back, we scrimmaged Friday, played 6 innings, played 9 innings Saturday, played 3 yesterday, we're playing 12 today. Like, not a lot of teams across the country can do that. And these guys are all on pitch count still. So, at most, these guys are getting 45 pitches. But we have enough arms that we're able to play and play and play, which gives our hitters at bats, gives our fielders reps, gives everybody, just more and more flow. So when that 17th comes around, I mean, we might have as hitters, 50 at bats under our belt, which is huge because in the North, I mean, you might have 10 outside at bats, maybe. Or you have 25, 30 at bats, but they're inside. You couldn't really see, and it's not the same. That's what I'm trying to say. At Cincinnati, they have a bubble. It's the best you can do up there. I mean, they have an indoor. It's super nice, and I was super fortunate for it because we got to have some sort of play. But, you're playing on a football field with fielders out of position. You're using a portable mound, bad lighting. Like, it's just tough. It doesn't translate as well. It's just like today we get to get out there for 4 or 5 hours and just play. So that's huge.
Yeah, I don't think people understand that, like how big of a deal that is. And I mean, I know just kind of like last year when Notre Dame was coming to town, people were looking at some of the numbers that they had to start the season. It was like, yeah, but do you realize what the conditions are?
Yeah, it's not a level playing field. And the other thing too with the northern schools is, I'm sure Notre Dame and I know Cincinnati, you always open up on the road. You have to go south for your first month. It's too cold. You can't play up there. So you go south and you go, like, I'm thinking last year at Cincinnati, we were super fortunate. A donor, gave a pretty nice donation. So we were able to go to Florida for a week right before the season and just play, which was nice. But once again, we didn't have as many pitchers. Guys hadn't been, built up on pitch count yet, so we couldn't play as much. But we got to get down there some, which was super nice because we opened up at Florida Gulf Coast last year. It's like we're playing Florida Gulf Coast in Fort Myers. These dudes have never been inside, ever. Right? Like the winter's 60 degrees and sunny. Like they have been playing outside all day, every day. And it's hard to come down as a northern school to a southern school that has been able to prepare differently than you because it's not really a level playing field.
Do you think that maybe with this different preparation, with this extra preparation, that you might be set up, in a better position than you have at any other point in your career? Like, do you feel better because of that?
Yeah, I'm thinking of my opening weekends throughout my career, and last year by far was I had a really good opening weekend, and I think honestly that might be because I got live at bats for a week before outside in Florida in the sun, got to see some pitching versus some of my prior years in Cincinnati. Like my first game at bat in the first inning, second inning, wherever I'm hitting in that lineup that day, that was my first outdoor at bat of that year. Like you're up here against a Friday night guy where everybody's Friday guy across the country has got good stuff. And you wouldn't be if you're a Friday guy if you don't. But you're going against a Friday night guy at their field, and that's the first time you've seen a baseball outside. And since the fall.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And Cincinnati, I mean, it's cold, but it's not the coldest. Like, I mean, the Michigan teams and things like that, or the teams up by Chicago go through the same thing. So you can't, I mean, it's not really an excuse, but it's something you got to deal with. So to answer your question, yeah, I think I'm going to be much better prepared. I think like right now, personally, throughout this early spring, for a lot of our guys, there's a lot of, I just missed that pitch, or you foul off a pitch you should hit, or, you didn't see a pitch super well. Like you're getting all of that adjustment out now. Like that, I just fouled off that fastball. Like I just missed that pitch barely. That's all coming out now. So by the time that the 17th rolls around, those are gone. You're ready to go. Versus sometimes when you come out from the north, you get all that stuff out the first 10 games. So that's why, a lot of those schools start, 5-5, 3-7, and then they end up being really good by the end of the year because they are really good and they have really good players and they should be good, but they're figuring their stuff out during the season versus here, you're figuring their stuff out now. So that's good.
Yeah, I appreciate that insight. That's just interesting to hear.
Yeah, not a lot of people think about, some of the geographical restraints on some of the baseball stuff, but it's real.
Right up. Just I guess one more process related question. You get in here and you guys, been ramping up this spring, obviously, to get this new coaching staff in your life after being at the same school for 4 years. Have there been any kind of tweaks to your game, or have they kind of opened your eyes up to any specific aspect of your game that you maybe hadn't thought about now that you're just kind of getting fresh hands on you as a player?
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything's been major. That's something that I've really liked about this coaching staff is, I know I don't have it all figured out. I don't. But I also didn't want to come somewhere where it's like, hey, man, like you had a bunch of success. You're a good player, but we're going to change everything about how you do stuff because this is how we do it here kind of thing. Like for a graduate transfer for a year, it's like, I mean, you don't want to do that. So this coaching staff has been giving me, a ton of respect. And I think that goes about how I handle my business. I think that respect was earned, but they get baseball, right? They get it. And we've definitely worked on things, I've worked on a bunch with our hitting coach, Josh Elander, and the adjustments versus changes, I think, is the biggest thing. And for me at this point in my career, it's more about approach and little things that I can tweak mentally versus, hey, we're going to put your hands here instead of here kind of thing, right? At this point, and honestly, it's like that for everybody here because there's so much talent and so many good players. A lot of guys, they're not in the, I guess what I'm getting at is the coaching staff here is fortunate enough. They're in the process of tweaking instead of teaching. They don't need to teach kids to hit, right? They recruited the kids that could hit, right? They're not in the business of, hey, we're going to spend hours and hours and hours teaching you how to hit a baseball. That's not the deal because you wouldn't be here if you couldn't. So they're at the point where they're bringing in kids that can already do the things they want them to do. Same with the pitchers. Like, hey, we're not going to teach you to throw strikes. You're going to throw strikes or you wouldn't be here. But now we're going to spend our time adjusting little things and cleaning up and improving that. So that is kind of, I think the approach here from the coaching style. And it's really nice as a player. And yeah, you got to have some talent and some, things you do well already to get here. But once you're here, we're refining you every day and we're just making you the best version of whatever, it is that you do well. Like if you're a power hitter, we're going to try to make your power consistent. We're going to try to help you square up as many balls as we can. If you're a fast guy, then we're going to make sure you can handle the bat. We're going to make sure you have a low strikeout rate so you can, use your legs. We're going to do this, and this to just capitalize on whatever, your tool is or your tools are. So as far as the coaching staff, yeah, we've definitely worked a lot. But it's also been, it's not like it's break it down to build it up kind of thing.
Griffin, before we let you go, I mentioned our friends from Crumble Cookie. I wanted you to go over this lineup with us. You guys are going to have a nice lineup. Not quite sure how things are going to shake out just yet, but we've got a lineup right here from Crumble Cookies. Just dropped milk chocolate chip, a churro cookie, a blueberry muffin, chocolate cookies and cream, a key lime pie cookie, and of course their classic pink sugar. Out of that lineup, Griffin, what's the play?
I've had the classic pink sugar, and that's pretty good. Back home, my brother is, I don't know if I'd say a cookie aficionado, but he definitely will, him and his girlfriend check out those cookies. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't clean up the scraps when he brought them home. But Crumble, I like Crumble Cookie. One of my roommates is Jared Dickey, and I remember in the fall we went and got some one time, brought them back for the house. There's a couple of guys who tried them, and it's a nice spot, and they got cool stuff. And I like that it's kind of like the rotation. Sometimes you walk in there, and really most times you don't really know what that lineup is for that week, but there's always something in there that surprises you. And to make a really corny connection to, I guess, the baseball team here between cookies and that is, I think that this year in the lineup, somebody on this team will surprise us, and it'll surprise somebody. It'll surprise the fans, and we don't know who it is, but somebody's going to do it. One of these young guys is going to step up. It might not be the first weekend, it might not be the second, it might not be till a regional or wherever, hopefully. But somebody's going to walk in that nobody knows about and is going to leave this season with t-shirt deals and all that stuff, and everybody's going to know who they are. So that's going to be fun to see who that is. It's going to happen.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, be sure to go check out Knoxville has 2 locations now. Clinton Highway. Also, they have a Turkey Creek location on Parkside Drive. Griffin, thanks for hopping on with us. Charley, do you have anything else for Griff?
I mean, real quick, now that you get to make the jump to the SEC, which team are you most looking forward to getting to go up against?
That's a good one.
I mean, to not be cliche, I think all of them, just because they're all going to be new to me. I've played Kentucky and Auburn and some other SEC teams in my career, but I think the 2 that are circled on my calendar, and as a player, you kind of want to treat every game as the same, but we also, as players, aren't robots. We're humans. We understand, some of the circumstances behind games, and the Arkansas and LSU series are on the top of my list for sure. And they're both road series, and they're both going to be, super regional-esque or College World Series-esque atmospheres, and it's going to be a good test for us. And I'm definitely excited to get down and get to those places and go take care of business.
Sounds good, man.
I agree.
February 17th can't come soon enough. It's on your calendar. It's on my calendar. We've all got eyes on it. Can't wait to see you guys and what this lineup looks like. Griffin, it was great getting to know you. We can't wait to watch you out there in Lindsey Nelson and see how things go this season.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie.